Guys, we need to talk. Look, the shirt that I have on top, it may look really nice, but there's just something I've been hiding from you guys. In almost all of my videos, even though I have a nice shirt on, I'm usually wearing sweatpants. I don't know why that's relevant, but there you go. Welcome to Modern Takeaways, episode 3. Today we're going to be talking about two stories that actually sound kind of similar and go together quite nicely. We're going to be looking at them, comparing them, and seeing what we can learn from them. Let's roll that intro.
Modern Takeaways, the show where we still don't have an intro.
We still don't have an intro, but a quick side note, I need to get out of the way before we get into the video. If I sound sick, that's because I kind of am. I'm not feeling well. I'm not drinking enough water, I guess, so part of my voice. I'm going to try to carry on and push through because I got to get this video up by Wednesday, and I want to teach you guys about the Bible. So let's hop right into it. Alright, so the first passage that we're going to be looking at takes place in Matthew, early Matthew actually, Matthew 4:18, where Jesus is just first calling his disciples. Let's read. As Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon called Peter and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. "Come, follow me," Jesus said, "and I will send you out to fish for people." At once they left their nets and followed him. Now, we've all heard the story, right? But what does it have to do with us? Well, here's an interesting thing that I haven't mentioned yet. You see, almost an identical story occurs a lot later in Jesus' ministry, actually after Jesus' death and resurrection. Have you heard this story? Probably, but I'm going to go ahead and refresh your minds if you haven't. It's going to take place in John 21, where Jesus actually reaches out to his disciples a second time, but in a similar way. Simon Peter, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and two other disciples were together. "I'm going out to fish," Simon Peter told them, and they said, "We'll go with you." So they went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Early in the morning, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples did not realize that it was Jesus. He called out to them, "Friends, haven't you any fish?" "No," they answered. He said, "Throw your net on the right side of the boat and you will find some." When they did, they were unable to haul the net in because of the large number of fish. Now we see some really big similarities in these two stories. And in this specific story, I really like to highlight Peter. That's who we're going to be talking about today, because Peter in the Matthew passage was out fishing when Jesus came and called him, and it says that Peter dropped his nets. Now those three words actually have a really profound meaning. When the author says that Peter dropped his nets, what he's actually saying is Peter decided to leave behind his occupation, source of income, source of stability, probably even a family he might have had. So when they say dropped his nets, he's saying when Jesus called him, he dropped absolutely everything he had and he decided to follow Jesus without even knowing who he was. So it's almost like when Jesus was beginning his ministry, all Peter needed to do was see Jesus, and he was willing to leave everything behind. Why? Well, Jesus gave him this promise. Jesus said, "I'll make you a fisher of men." Now that's different from what we've heard thus far, because as of now, Peter was just fishing fish. So what exactly does it mean to be a fisher of men? Well, God was saying, stop doing what you're doing, stop doing exactly what you're used to, because I want to give you a new lifestyle, a new source of income, something new to rely on, and I want you to follow me. He was also telling him, Peter, I want you to find your value from something else. Well, what exactly is that something else? Well, Peter was curious enough about it to follow Jesus. So that's the first passage. Peter was willing to follow Jesus just as soon as he was called. Now let's fast forward. In the John chapter, Peter is in a very similar situation. What we don't know is that before the John passage, Jesus had already done most of his earthly ministry, died, and rose again. And all the disciples after that thought that their journey was finished. So Peter, being the leader that he is, hanging out with some other disciples, he says, "Guys, I'm going to go fish." Now this actually has a great significance. You see, him saying, "I'm going to go back to fish," was him saying, "I'm going to go put on my old lifestyle." He's actually putting on fisher's clothes. "I'm going to go put on my own lifestyle and go back to what I was doing before Jesus called me, relying on these fish to provide for me everything that I need." So he was now going to use fish to get food, money, water, everything he needed, except for one thing. He couldn't catch any fish. So they've been fishing the entire night and caught nothing. Now, I'm sorry, but if you fish for an entire night and have no fish, you're not great fishermen. And so Jesus comes up to the shore and he's like, hey guys, did you catch anything? And they say, no. And Jesus was like, yo, I got you bros, all right? Cast your nets on the right side of your boat and see what happens. They didn't even know who this man was that was talking to them on the beach. Now, we know it was Jesus, but they didn't know this at the time. They didn't know this until they cast their nets on the right side of the boat. Because as they were pulling them up, there was such a heavy load of fish that they couldn't even haul it into the boat. The nets started to break. How many fish is this? It's hard to tell exactly how many, but we know that the nets that they were using to fish were made to catch fish, and in large amounts. Maybe some bigger fish that weighed more. These nets were fishing nets, and they could barely haul up the amount of fish that they had just caught. Now, what does this mean? Well, Jesus wanted to teach Peter a very, very significant lesson. And Peter got it right away, because as soon as they got the fish out of the boat, Peter knew exactly who was on that shore talking to him, and he ran out into the water just to go see Jesus. But what is the message that Peter got so profoundly? Well, here on Modern Takeaways, we dig deeper, at least when we feel like it. And I have come to this conclusion. You see, fish was what Peter relied on for his source of income, as I've stated before. But here's the thing. Jesus came in and said, you know that thing that you're relying on for income? Well, guess what? I have so much more power than that. And in fact, I have power over that. God was saying, I have power over the fish, and therefore he was able to put so much fish into Peter's net. Jared, that's pretty obvious, right? Well, here's the thing. It's actually symbolic that God is greater than what earthly thing Peter was relying on. But what does that have to do with us? Well, here's the thing. Whatever earthly thing we're relying on, let me tell you this, God is much greater. He's also in control of it. He's over it. He can multiply that to however many times he wants. We even saw Jesus in one of his stories take, how many fish, how many loaves of bread? I'm guessing 5 fish, 2 loaves. Jared, you have an online ministry. You should know your Bible. Yeah. Okay, this part wasn't in my notes, so I have to look this up really quick. 5 loaves, 2 fish. Did I flip them? I flipped them. That's okay though. Jesus took 2 fish and he was able to feed 5,000 people. Literally, he was able to replicate these 2 fish and multiply them to however many he needed. And we see this once again where he's showing Peter, I have so much power and control over what you are trying to rely on. So what's the modern takeaway? Well, here's the thing. Whatever earthly thing that we're relying on, God has so much more power over it. He's over it and he is in control of it. And whatever path we're going down and whatever direction we choose to go, God might just be calling us out of that. Just as he stood at the shore and called Peter away from that fishing route, he said, Peter, I have a new mission for you. God might just have a mission for you as well. So with that in mind, what's your response? See, Peter, on the first occasion, dropped his nets. He dropped the lifestyle that he had worked so hard to build up, and he went and followed God. The second time, Peter ran off of the boat. He just dived into the water, didn't care that his clothes had gotten wet, whatever. He ran in the water to go see Jesus. So if we have the same call in our lives to drop whatever earthly thing we're relying on and to follow God, what are we going to do? And you know what? I can't answer that question, because that is a question that you need to answer by yourself. But if I say that Jesus is calling you today to a ministry here on earth to build up God's kingdom that has eternal value, rather than these earthly things that'll fade away in a few years, what are you going to do about it? Whatever foundation we've built our lives on, guess what? God is a rock, a much stronger foundation than we can imagine. So to summarize, how about we build our foundation on God, and whatever he's calling us to do, let's go do it. And also, don't worry about the details, because God has those figured out. All you gotta do is answer the call, if you so choose. But anyways, guys, that's going to be all for today's Modern Takeaways episode. I hope you learned something that you can actually apply to your life. My name is Jared, and I messed up my outro. Anyways, guys, that's all for Modern Takeaways for today. As always, I hope that you learned something you can actually apply to your life. My name is Jared, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.